welcome to episode 7 of the Bowl30 podcast. I just took a hit of weed. Let's let this episode burn.
Coffee's done.
Oh, fantastic. I brought my own coffee, but I'm sure I'll run out eventually here.
There's plenty. I have, probably half a pound left.
We have the red light on, so we're going again. Maybe this will
Just so you know, I have 1/2 of 1 pound left of coffee.
You only have a half a pound left?
Jesus
That's
Christ.
kind of like when you started getting in the danger zone.
Well, I'm going shopping tomorrow, so... It's remarkable how people don't account for these things. The continuity of life. You think, oh, I'm making, $2,000 a month. I got lots of money to spend. Well, no, you actually have to buy groceries every month, and you have to fill your car up with gas every month, and you have to pay for your cable and your internet and your power bills and your water, or in our case, a homeowner's fee, and you really, it's fascinating when you start to look at these things. It's almost as if somebody has designed the system to keep the mass of people down.
No.
Heavens to Betsy, where on earth would that
That is one conspiracy theory that I will shun and throw into a dark closet and forget about. Because you know what? I'm just a millionaire in the making, man. I'm just, capitalism, dude. Like, I'll make it. I'll be living in the house on the hill one day, No, that's actually not how I feel. I totally agree with you.
Well, I think I just threw a lightning bolt into the gears of society.
I know they're going to shut our podcast down. Men in Black are on their way, dude. They're on their way in. They've been listening. We are going to come over there. We got to shut them up.
Well, I'm sorry. Paranoia, skepticism, all of these things are actually, valuable tools. There are times when you have to put them aside and understand that, things are the way that they seem. But having a healthy sense of skepticism about, people's motives and ideals is, useful.
Extremely useful. But it's knowledge is power, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure everyone listening has heard before, knowledge is power, and there's with great power comes great responsibility, said Spider-Man's dad.
Uncle
Ben.
Uncle Ben. He had some rice.
Uncle Ben's rice. That's great. But there's some you can empower yourself with all the conspiracy theories out there and train your brain to think in a conspiratorial way, and you can see conspiracies where they're not, even in your walking life. And it's important to be happy and to realize the limitations that the rest of the world doesn't have, the limitations that you think are there but they're really not. I think we talked in a previous episode how you can basically not watch the news ever, and the likelihood of the news ever saving your life having you had watched it is like nothing. Like that, it's unless there's a tornado coming your direction, but you can kind of look out your window and see that happening. We watch the news and build a lot of fear in our lives around.
Yeah, that was the last episode.
There's a serial killer in the neighborhood or something, and it's just.
Well, it's kind of funny. Sometimes the local news gets it right. So, this one morning, me and my mother are having breakfast, and we're just, we're chilling, and we hear all these helicopters flying over here. What the hell is going on here? There's something's not right. And then we hear some sirens coming around. We go out and we look, and there's helicopters flying, overhead, like in the neighborhood. We go to the local news, and apparently a bear has escaped from a local preserve and is wandering around our local neighborhood, which is actually fairly deep into a suburb of Denver, Colorado. The local news hit it on that one.
They
got it.
You actually were able to turn on the TV and get an answer to
get an answer.
Why are these helicopters
What's
flying
going
around?
on?
99% of the time there's helicopters flying overhead with a spotlight out going, and they're searching for someone. You turn on the news or you listen to like news radio, and you'll never know what's going on. And I mean, I've seen some searches going on. Like when I used to live in Aurora, and I saw some like pretty intense searching by helicopters where you got their spotlight out and you never heard anything about, it's like, what the fuck is going on? Like, if you guys are out there searching for somebody, obviously they're a danger, you think, and you're not even going to tell us what's going on. It's,
That's what I hated about living, like, in Denver proper. There was a time that I lived in we're going to call it a desirable neighborhood in Denver. And there was a police station nearby, and it just happened to be the south. Okay, I don't know if I should get that specific, but one of the helicopter locations of the Denver Police Department.
Oh, cool.
And so it would pop up all the time. Oh, I could say it's near DU. How about that? And so the helicopter would pop up all the time. So you had to get used to this helicopter flying in and out of your neighborhood all the time for things that were happening not anywhere near you.
It's a police helicopter. It's not like Flight for Life.
No.
So whenever this thing's going up, something fucked up is going on. Like something's going on really bad. Oh, Lucas was so kind. I saw him run out of our building today and head out to a dispensary. Head out to our favorite dispensary. Lucy Sky got more of the mango haze. God, it smells good.
And apparently it has become quite popular.
What year did what's his name? Shale Silverstein?
Shel Silverstein?
Shell?
Shelby.
Is it?
I believe it's Shelby.
Such a weird name. Do you know what year he wrote that? It's the Great Smoke Off, right?
Oh, it had to be the 70s.
Yeah.
Had to be the 70s. I mean, if I had to just place it by, random thinking, I would have to say it was the 70s.
I actually brought my laptop with me today to do some light research because there's been a number of times in the podcast so far that I've been kind of off and kind of on some numbers, and it's probably best to provide those to our listeners. So updates from previous podcasts, Tesla drove about 130 million miles before that first fatality, and on average, Americans drive 90 million miles before a fatality. So, about 40% better.
And then I'm going to take you into the realm of probability here. Once you've had the first accident, your second accident is more likely. But go on. Okay, more numbers.
Drudge Report's revenue is estimated for just their advertisements on their website at $50,000 a day. And they get 1 billion views a month.
Okay. 50,000 a day times 30 would be what, 6 million a month? So 6 million times 12 would be $72 million a year in just revenue, and that doesn't.
And that's just for their.
That's just revenue. That's not.
And this is a website that looked at their ads, and they said, well, on average, they have this many ads running, and Drudge Report has like almost no ad space. At least, if you don't count any of the stories, and who knows if people are paying for placement on there.
Which is possible, because we don't actually report the news anymore. We just report what's profitable. Wow, that sounded so disrespectful to the news.
Yeah, well, it's all fake, it's fake news. CNN is fake news. If you type into Google, CNN is... Let's see if it still does it. It does the autofill. The first thing that comes up is CNN is fake news. The next one is CNN is biased. The next one, CNN is liberal.
See, no, I don't understand this, because we have known for years that Fox is not news; it's propaganda. But nobody seems. I mean, the only people who make fun of it are the people who are actually funded by Fox's programming.
Well, and these Google results are based on popularity, so...
Well, and think about that for a second. The only people who are the hugest critics of Fox News are the people who are funded by Fox News. Family Guy, The Simpsons. I mean, they don't stop. They have been at it since pretty much
the beginning.
It's
really funny how they do that, and they get away with it.
There's actually a reason behind that. Fox News is the only network that can afford the news that it does because it owns the shows that are being made by it. Because it has the most popular shows, it gets the most views, it gets a bigger share of the market, it gets more money. That's why the news is so outrageous and propagandistic. Because
it's got
87
money.
1987, 83. I can't remember exactly which year it was, but they decided that you didn't have to have real news on your network anymore.
Yeah.
Fucking Reagan.
I kind of like Fox News. I don't really have that many problems with it. Looking at all of the big news channels, I kind of see them all in a similar light. Pushing agendas and not covering things that I feel are incredibly large stories. Like the Bilderberg meeting goes on every year, and it's a rarity for it ever to be mentioned by any of those networks. Oh, another number. Berkshire Hathaway stock is at $240,000 a share. And I said on the podcast, the highest I've ever seen it was at 140.
Yeah.
So the last time I checked, the stock price was in 2013, apparently. That's kind of funny.
All right. The Bilderberg Group. We cannot even begin to scratch the surface because I think we're deep into another subject at this point. But the Bilderberg Group is one of the most ingeniously perpetrated frauds upon the world I have ever been a party to.
You've been a party to the Bilderberg Group?
No, they don't exist. I want some concrete proof of the things that are supposedly done by this Bilderberg Group.
Well, I mean, the group exists. I mean, I'm sure there's even a Wikipedia page for it. I don't think there's any debating whether or not the group exists. They actually publish a list of who's going to be in attendance every year, and they've done that for a number of years now,
Sure.
like 7 or 8 years.
So it's a club where people get together.
Well, it's
But
a
what is
club
it-
where if elected officials and I believe appointed officials of the U.S. government, if they attend the meeting, they are in violation of the Logan Act, which says that you can't go and meet behind closed doors with other governments or corporations without the approval of Congress. So it's kind of a big deal that, that when they publish the list of who's in attendance, shockingly, there's never anyone that pretty much any American would see on that. I've looked at that list before and never recognized a name on the whole damn list. But then there's pictures of Barack Obama going there, and Hillary Clinton going there, and George W. Bush going there, and other elected U.S. officials. So that's really concerning that here you have them violating law, and then the news media, none of it. Fox News, CNN, CBS, even your local stations. I'm sure there's probably examples of small stations covering it, but by and large, as far as I haven't paid too much attention to big news in the past few years, so there's a possibility that they've covered Bilderberg a little bit, but for the longest time, media blackout, it didn't exist. It was a joke. If you talked about it, you were laughed at, and then eventually they started publishing, and it wasn't long ago, they started publishing the list of who's in attendance there.
One of my favorite fictions of all time is James Bond, because of this group Spectre, which controls, all of the entire criminal world. I mean, it's just.
That's the villain in all the Bond movies, right?
Or
not all?
No, just the first two, I think. Casino Royale and I can't remember. It shows up every now and again, but
I think it's Fried.
Damn it!
I smoked him faster than he could roll them. So I don't know. I mean, maybe Bilderberg. Maybe all that they've done is like, made the Earth better. I don't know. Nobody knows because you can't get transcripts of any of the going ons inside. You can't get transcript of the talks that are given by any of the people in attendance, and so you in a lot of ways we really don't know. I mean, there are some people who have said they've been to meetings, and there's people that say that they have moles in there. Like some independent media types, and they report what the agenda is. And every year Alex Jones goes and spends a lot of time covering it, and he'll go to wherever it is and try to get as close as he can and picture and try to photograph the people going in the limousines as they go into a building that's usually has a perimeter around it to prevent anyone from seeing who's getting out of the tinted limousines. But
all right, I've got an opposing theory for you. All of the celebrities of the world are sick and tired of being under public scrutiny all the time. So they finally found a place where they can block everybody out. And they just go and play canasta.
Could be. Some Rubik's Cube, too. What game did you say?
Which one?
Canasta?
Canasta.
I don't even know what that is.
Oh,
God.
some.
See, that's why I love hanging out with you, man, because I'll find you talk about things I've never even heard of, and I'm like, oh, awesome. How do you spell it?
Canasta.
Canasta.
I think it's. Ugh. It helps.
Card game.
It's like a gambling version of bridge, I think.
Canasta is a card game of the Rummy family of games believed to be a variant of 500 Rum. Although many variations exist for 2, 3, 5, or 6 players, and that's on Wikipedia without me even clicking on the webpage. So if you want to know more, go for it. But it's a card game, Canasta.
Rummy. I'm sorry.
It's Rummy.
Not bridge. Well, bridge is kind of like Rummy. Well, they're all kind of the same. You have a limited number of options when you only have 4 suits and 13 cards in each suit. I mean...
But to finish off Bilderberg, I don't think there's any question whether or not that meeting happens every year. And the fact that it's not been reported in mainstream media for years, I think is kind of telling. You could say, oh, well, maybe they just didn't know about it because it's a small meeting. It's like a couple hundred people. It's not like Davos where it's a few thousand. This is a real small meeting, and they do it in different places every year. So it's kind of hard to track where it's even going to be. But like I've called our local news, 9 News. I've called them up before and said, "Hey, I didn't see that you guys, you guys aren't covering Bilderberg. It's kind of weird." They're like, "What?" I'm like, "Oh, it's on the front page of Drudge." And the woman's like, "What? What is this? Bilderberg?" She hadn't even heard of it. And I heard her punch in Drudge Report on her computer and pull it up, and she's like, "Oh, whoa, that's crazy!" Because we were running a headline from Alex Jones, and Alex Jones like totally sensationalizes it. You know, like the most elite are meeting in secret again at Bilderberg to set policy for the coming year, without any prying eyes or something. And she was like, "Oh, well, we're gonna have a meeting today. We have a meeting every day, and we decide what we're gonna do, what we're gonna put on. And I'm definitely gonna recommend that we put this on." And I was like, "Okay, listen, if you want to get it put on before you get to that meeting, go around and try to get some other people in your corner to like actually get it on, because trust me, someone at the top there has been told already. Like I think that they get instructions not to talk about it. That's honestly what I think, because I mean, total media blackout. You know, that year that I called him, it was a few years ago, so it was probably like
or
2014, 2013.
Now but I'm going to take the opposing view on that one too. It's just not news. I know. Conspiracy theory is fun to go to, but I don't think the Bilderberg group is anything that anybody. And I'm not.
We don't have any evidence.
By saying
at all.
I'm not a member of it is like saying I'm a member of it. I'm not a member of it, and I don't think that it really is anything. I've seen all the evidence that people have been trying to present about how it controls our world and affects monetary policy across the board. And
does it concern you that the attendance of certain U.S. officials would be an act of espionage under the Logan Act?
Who says that they're talking about what they're talking about? The people who are reporting that they're making monetary policy.
I mean, when you look at like who they're meeting with, it's kind of they haven't made the claim that they're just there playing bridge. I'll put it that way. Yeah.
Fair enough, but they haven't denied it either.
Well, they generally don't talk about it at all, and if they're questioned.
Okay,
and independent media people will go up and question him. Alex Jones has done this. He's gone up to people that he knew went to Bilderberg and questioned him about it. And to see these people like run, like literally try to run away from him, or when you hear him start stuttering when they go to try to lie about it, they're like, "Oh, that stutter that you get when you don't want to have a Freudian slip." You're like, "Oh, please don't say it was awesome. We had a great time, and we're all making a lot more money than you guys again, consolidating our wealth." And I don't know. The fact of the matter is, I don't think that there hasn't been any like hidden footage to come out of a Bilderberg meeting, so we really don't know what's going on there.
Isn't that surprising?
They have really good security.
What if people go? What if people go in and find out that these celebrities are...
They're not celebrities at all.
They are.
Not really.
They're people who make policy, but they're celebrities in their fields.
Not a lot of them. Not a lot of them are policymakers. A lot of them are from like huge corporations.
Okay, well now
you have to look at the list.
Now you're just making it sound like
they're mostly bankers.
Club Med or something.
It's mostly heads of huge banks, and some politicians.
Okay,
I don't know. It's a great conspiracy theory.
Well, I don't deny that.
I think they're the ones that are. They work together behind the scenes to try to maintain power, and they can do that pretty well most of the time. I don't think Donald Trump's part of their club, considering that the media never even talks about Bilderberg, but yet the media will point out every single thing that Trump's ever done bad. And give him, talk about a politician being run through the mud. I don't think there's another person that's run for president who's had so many negative stories written about them.
I would disagree with that.
Who would you put as an example of another politician that has had a comparable...
All of them? It strikes me as it's a very It's a very, and I think it's because the United States of America is a young country. I mean, let's face it, we are a very young country. 200 years compared to many of our neighbors.
We are one of the youngest countries.
Yeah. We tend to not remember things. We have a very effective, and it's not a short-term memory, it's a long-term memory loss. We remember things that happened recently.
I mean, like, we don't know where Atlantis was. But, you know, the oldest story of Atlantis comes from, as far as I know, from Plato. Wrote about Atlantis and said that it was the super advanced civilization that existed like 9,000 years ago. I'm not sure when Plato was alive, but I think that puts that Atlantis civilization. Have you heard about that?
Many years ago. But it was their hubris that destroyed them. So he was what? 400 BC? Because Aristotle was 460. And Plato was Aristotle's.
So Plato died in 348 BC.
So like 400?
So 9,000 years before that would be like 9,400 BC. And that Atlantis like got flooded or something.
It sank.
Is that what? Have you read Plato's talk about it?
The gods destroyed them because of their hubris that they had become so close to the gods. I guess the allegory is you can't put your faith completely into those things that you create. You have to, remain rooted in where you are. It's the same story that happens in I can't name one right now, but I've seen this before where a society becomes so dependent upon its technology it forgets how to maintain its technology, and when the technology breaks down they don't know that it's breaking down because they live by the technology. Star Trek, original Star Trek, the Landru story where they beam down to the planet and this god Landru controls all the people. But I mean, there was a breakdown in the system. Don't rely on your. Don't put all your eggs in one basket.
And that was the end of it.
To sum up Plato, yeah, they destroyed themselves by relying too much on their technology.
There's another really good theory about Atlantis getting destroyed in a cataclysmic event that probably would have been like an asteroid causing it.
I have not heard that one, but I believe it.
But I mean, this is kind of like, you kind of have to fudge a lot of the numbers of ages that people say and kind of assume like if Plato's right that there was an Atlantis and it got destroyed like 9,000 years ago. Like when did that really actually happen then? Like how many years ago was it? Because we can now look at soil samples all over the planet and identify like micro particles that would be only present in soil layers from matter like raining down from asteroids, right? And they're able to identify layers and time periods to within really, really close ranges, especially if they get some organic material in there as well, because then they can carbon date and really fine-tune in on approximate ages.
I suppose you can get like within 1,000 years or so, maybe.
Well, go with carbon date. I think carbon dating can be like plus or minus 50 years.
But there has to be carbon there. And
enough. Like if you find like a tree branch that's been stuck in the soil, and happens to be in this layer, then that's like that would be perfect, right? A perfect source, and you'd be able to have plus or minus like 50 years. They've identified a certain. I think Lucas got a mouthful of coffee grounds. Did you?
Yes.
Oh God, that's terrible. Oh. Just eat them. They're good. They're good for you.
High in fiber.
They'll speed things up.
Yeah.
But there was a point in time where there was a huge asteroid that hit this planet, and I think it was. I should look it up.
There were many of them. Many times.
There was one in particular, like the most recent big one.
65 million years ago, when the dinosaurs became extinct.
They're like 13,000-ish age. And this is all stuff where there's evidence, there's studies that have taken place, right? You can search this published research. It was done with grant money, and they have these timelines documented. But it's kind of like science that the mainstream science is not like willing to accept this yet.
Well, how big? I mean,
pretty big. Like probably part of the cause of killing off. I mean, did it kick off the mini ice age and that great freeze that occurred all over the Canada and the United States? I mean, back 13,000 years ago, like where we're standing here in Colorado, I think was under ice. And I know for sure, like Montana and stuff was covered in a giant ice sheet that was, I think, like 10 miles thick or something.
Colorado used to have a glacier.
And the oceans were 400 feet lower than they are today at that same time. And I think the age is it's 11,600 years ago when that mini ice age was going on. But there's so much weight that was put on the Great Plains that since and for such a long period of time, it actually pushes the ground down. The whole continent gets pushed down more into the greater structure of the Earth, right? And then when that happens, other areas get raised up. But once the ice goes away, the weight's gone, and things are start restabilizing again. And that process of the Earth springing back up from being depressed can take tens of thousands of years in a slow-moving process.
You're talking like basin and range effect, or are you talking like...
No, like huge scale.
Okay.
Like, when there's earthquakes off of the coasts of... I think there's some off of the coast of Greece, and islands came up out of the ocean where land goes up with earthquakes. And you see it a lot of the time, especially with big earthquakes. You don't see ground going down, typically. You see it almost always going up.
Well...
I think. I'll have to look at a map of with topographical changes after earthquakes and see for sure. But I always hear about it going up, so I'm assuming that it typically it has a tendency of going upward.
There are three kinds of faults that happen when rock hits each other. There's a transverse fault, which means that it moves side to side. That's what the Los Angeles, the San Andreas fault is like that. I mean, eventually Los Angeles will come up to San Francisco. Eventually.
Well, then you can have a subduction zone,
and that's what's happening in the Pacific Northwest,
where
underneath.
Earth is diving underneath.
And, it's going underneath.
But this is, mind you, a theory. This is under plate tectonics theory. Key word there is theory, because it's not proven. This is things that overwhelmingly, there's not a lot of physical evidence for them to point at with plate tectonics.
Well, there's a lot of physical evidence for them to point at.
Kind of not, as well. I mean, in some ways, there's a lot more conjecture and evidence built upon good conjecture, and people saying, putting forward theories and having the group of geologists who have a slow pace of accepting new ideas, and they've been shown to be up to 60 to 80 years behind on accepting new ideas historically.
Well, but the new ideas have to perform to the rigorous tests of being proven.
I think part of the problem is how big we are and how big the planet is, and just trying to measure it. like just to take measurements of the Earth and to see these things working. I honestly haven't had plate tectonic theory proven to me. Like, I mean, I'm not buying it.
Really?
At all. I think that some of the evidence and some of their thoughts, I'm not saying that they're wrong about everything. I think they're just wrong about a few things on this one. But some, like, really, really big things. Like, I think the Earth expands. And I think Neil Adams, on his expanding Earth theory, conquers plate tectonics. Like, plate tectonic theory is dead. It's absolutely wrong. And I challenge anybody that's going to comment and, like, call me an idiot for this, please do. Please, if you want to write a comment telling me how stupid I am, that plate tectonic theory definitely beats out Neil Adams' theory, and tell me why. I want to hear why, because their theory, and just listen to Neil Adams and like listen to the hour-long lecture or that he gives, or an hour-long interview on Grimerica's podcast, and then get back to me and tell me what he's wrong about.
I'm going to give you my disproving thought upon why plate tectonics is a real thing. Hawaii. Hawaii. And okay.
Why is it really interesting?
Now think about this. Okay. So there's, according to plate tectonic theory, there are hot spots in the magma layer upon which the plates float. Okay. And sometimes they pop up and form, volcanoes, and if they're in the ocean, obviously they're going to form an island. Well, you can track the progress of the creation of Hawaii with the subduction and transversion on the Pacific plate.
I would just call it movement. I would just say that you can see that the crust has moved over a hotspot, and all of the Hawaiian Islands have been built by that same hotspot.
Yes.
And I would say that the only evidence that you have there is movement, that it's moving.
Yes,
right.
But in order for it to move in such a way, the subduction and transverse zones would have to exist. Would have to be a real thing. Unless
the planet's growing from the Pacific out.
But then, if that's happening, then why isn't the Earth? Because you could probably measure this.
Dude, this is the thing. The Illuminati keeps these secrets from us. Seriously. They know that the planet expands, and they give us fake theories, and we're wrong. We're actually watching the video right now of Neil Adams expanding Earth, and right now we're like a minute into it, so it's been shrunken down to 1/3 of its size, and now the planet, he's going to have it go backwards and grow again.
But where'd the water come from?
Well, where did the salt come from? I think there's like Neil Adams' theory says there's in the middle of our planet, it's hot because there's matter that's being produced with a process that is called paired production. And if you want to get like really heady on how matter's made, listen to that podcast. They get into it towards the end. He starts talking about the paired production, and it's just a theory about how matter comes to be, and with the right circumstances in place, like a strong enough gravitational field and a large enough body, if those parameters are met, you'll have matter that'll just kind of it'll just kind of pop into existence, sort of, but there's something that's going on there, and it deals with time and space and energy flowing through space. And I can't really explain it because this weed is really fucking good. Like, I'm way too ripped to try to explain this, but it's an interesting theory. Yeah. So I mean, he's mapped it all out and shrunk it down. And remember, this guy's a genius. That he does. that sneezing bee commercial for Flownex, he did that. So he knows how to use CAD programs and stuff. And if you watch this video of the Earth expanding, and we don't have the audio on because I don't want this to get pulled down, but he talks about how there's no subduction, there's no reduction, that basically all of the original Earth, when it cooled at a third of its size, the whole crust on the outside there.
But that completely takes away why volcanoes exist. How does he explain volcanoes?
It's part of what's there anyways. It's just other geological features. You have the crust cracking. I mean, you have to think about what's happening to the crust as the planet's growing.
But if
if it's growing, right?
Right. And if
like,
it's
have
growing,
you tried to flatten out like an orange peel, and you get ridges on an orange peel when you try to flatten it out because you're taking with the planet growing from a third of its size to its current size, 3 times the size, the mass, 3 times the mass, not Earth. Maybe it's 3 times the diameter.
Yeah.
Either way, what is on the crust is a much flatter sphere shape. So there's a lot of curvature that was there that needs to get rectified. And so just like flattening out an orange peel, the ridges that show up in an orange peel are like mountains on the crust of the Earth.
Sure, but there would still be no volcanoes. Because if the Earth is expanding, if the skin of the planet has the ability, like a balloon, to continue expanding, it would be a relief in pressure, not an increase in pressure, which is what a volcano is. A volcano is, I mean, it's not just a weak spot in the crust. There's
it goes down into like the
there's crushing pressure on this
from above, from the sides.
There would have to be from inside too.
I don't know. It's a fascinating theory. I think you have the planet growing, and that growing is relieving the pressure of the increase of matter on the inside. And when you're flattening out the crust and it's bulging and creating mountains. I mean, you have volcanoes near mountains or in mountains. Mount St. Helens. I think Hawaii. There's one other island chain that's like Hawaii where it's a hot spot. I think there's another one.
Yeah, there's a few.
But they're super rare.
No,
there's like 2.
There's Hawaii. There's Indonesia. Indonesia is fucking thousands of islands. The entire South Pacific is a region of hot spots. The Azores, I think, are hot spots. The Caribbean is a series of hot spots.
Yeah, and it's all along the Ring of Fire, right? We're looking at the ocean.
Not all of it, but there's quite a bit along the Ring of Fire. I mean, the South Pacific is definitely a.
We're looking at 6 minutes and 9 seconds of Neil Adams' Science 01 Conspiracy Earth is Growing. That's the title. Video.
The Aleutians, those things. I mean, because look at that. Okay,
see these lines here?
Yeah, how can you tell me that these hot spots running along these things, which actually can be correlated to the movement of the plate, if it were doing what tectonic theory said it were doing?
Yeah, it's a hell of a theory.
I mean, I'm not discounting.
He's saying that it's like basically there is the rift in the deepest part of the Marianas Trench, right, where there's like lava and it cuts. It's been known to cut the cables that are run across the ocean. Like that's what would happen a lot. They would run cable for phone lines across the ocean, across the Atlantic.
Atlantic. It's the Mid-Atlantic Bridge, and that's just the
and there's
spreading.
Fire that goes all the way through. Right. So that's where all the new Earth is. And Neil Adams goes in and he charts out on here like the different ages of the ocean floor from samples, and you can confirm these are their numbers.
Sure.
He's not a scientist. He's just taken other scientific information and taken when there's numbers to be had and put that all together and came up with this mad dog theory that I happen to think is right. I think And I love saying this because 500 years from now, maybe his theory will have been proven by then, and will be the accepted truth. And
It's
people will
possible.
say, "Look, see, they weren't all." It's weird. Like one of the guys that's really kind of dumb, says he was right about something. There's an example of it.
But I'm gonna point you to the age of rocks coming out of the Atlantic Ridge. I'm going to use the same evidence that he's using, but in a different manner. If you measure it out, it becomes younger again at one point. So it must be recycling somewhere in the middle.
Well, as far as I've seen it, everything closest to the ridge
Is new.
is the youngest.
Yes.
And then moving outward
Gets older.
gets older.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really young. Like, I think the oldest rocks they found were like 90 million years old when you're getting like pretty damn close to the coasts. So think about that. All that rock right there is aged at 90 million years. So, if you match up the 90 million years on the left side of the Atlantic Ridge with the 90 million years on the right side that seems to have almost the exact same shape, and you close that up, and you do that on the Pacific Ocean as well, then you're basically starting out where Neil Adams did on where he started his theory.
But the Pacific Ocean moves differently. It's a different plate.
It's a different plate, but that phenomenon of the age of...
And
if
you
I'm
calculate
trying to find
out
a picture of it.
if you calculate out the amount of
Right,
pressure
like
of building the new rock coming across to the Rocky Mountains, right,
Yeah.
is to the subduction of the other one, which is pushing. It's not only pushing up, but it's pushing against the Atlantic plate. You come up with the only place that the Rocky Mountains could exist is where they are right now, because the Pacific plate was pushing and coming up underneath the Atlantic plate, the North American.
Right. I mean, this is what modern science says, and Neil Adams says that the subduction zone, it's just not. That has nothing to do with Rocky Mountains. That it's formed from it flattening out, and it's the third set of Rocky Mountains that we've had. Did you know that? Yeah, I heard that in 10th grade science class, Earth science. Actually, it was my freshman year. 9th grade Earth science.
Well, okay, yeah, I guess we have had a couple inland seas in here, and well, I would argue second set. If somebody's really gonna bitch about it, I would say there were 2. I wouldn't go with 3. I think that would be.
If you watch this video showing the oceans closing up and all of the crust coming together perfectly, I mean, it is something else to see. And it seems like it would make sense that could happen. Or you're forced to try to believe that the continents float around nilly-willy like greased bacon on a skillet, and that Pangea has formed twice and it's going to form again. That all of the continents came together on one side of the planet, and which would actually kind of make it really lopsided and not a balanced system. But we're made to believe that at one time there was a huge supercontinent that broke up, right? Mm-hmm. It does start to sound kind of absurd when you think about it.
Oh, actually, that just brought me to think that we are overdue for a pole switch.
We are super overdue for a pole switch. It's fascinating how they measure it. So if you didn't know this, when lava is cooling, there's some iron in lava, right? And the orientation of ferrous metals will get magnetized, right? And so small bits of iron in lava get polarized in a certain direction as the lava is cooling, and they can dig down through lava layers and see the different changes in direction of the pole. And the North Pole floats around quite a bit, actually. The magnetic North Pole, if you search the web for that, you'll see that it actually doesn't stay at a really fixed position. It's constantly kind of moving around, and I think in more recent history it's been moving around a lot more. And I mean, let's be honest here. We really don't know what the inside of this planet looks like or how it works. There's people doing some fantastic research, and they've created a replica of the inside of our planet under their theory that it's like a big liquid molten iron core. I think they're using some other fluid to replicate it, but there's people, and I think they're in Europe somewhere that are doing this research. They're trying to figure out what the fluid dynamics look like on the inside of the core, and it's quite the mystery. And the interval that the pole will flip is not a extremely predictable interval. Like it's been. But it does function within like a plus or minus range that we're well within now.
Yeah, 750,000 years, I think, is what. So here, 750,000 years. I want you to picture that. My head, it stopped. I mean, think about that. 1 million. Okay, so 1 million is just a phenomenally large number.
Huge.
750,000. It's like you're trivializing it.
Yeah, it doesn't sound nearly as big at all. So there's some research that was done, and they were trying to figure out like how much money it would take for people to do like anything. And they found that like you could get most people to do just about anything for $1 million, right? But you could like if you presented like the option of like $3 million, then you could get everyone to do just pretty much everything. Like most people would do anything for like $3 million that they wouldn't do for $1 million. Like they did this research and like posed horrible questions too, like like killing your neighbor or something like that,
Oh, sure.
Like really terrible shit.
I think that goes back to an earlier point that we have discussed. Money is just, it should not be the focus of life.
It shouldn't be calling the shots on how we use resources going into the future. Like there are limited, unless oil replenishes itself from the inside of the planet, which actually it's kind of funny is kind of part of Neil Adams' theory. But there's what's this planet gonna what is Earth gonna look like 3,000 years from now if we keep doing what we're doing? If we keep having stupid blow up plastic Santas in our front yard, like we shouldn't be making stupid shit like that. Like with the production of that sort of crap
it's distracting.
And I guess it wouldn't be so bad if all garbage was sifted through and sorted and things were used properly. I mean, the fact that that's not going on in America, like in Colorado today, it's sad. Like, why don't they just have a huge plant and instead of having the landfills, you just have a huge factory, and the trash comes in and everything is sorted and you burn whatever can't be recycled as a form of fuel.
That kind of is what they're doing right now.
Well, they have landfills, right? I mean,
but they're using those for methane production for energy. I
don't know if they use it for energy.
Oh, they do.
I'll tell you what, if you drive off of Lucent Boulevard and C470, if you go south on Lucent from C470, you can see an open flame that's like burning, because there used to be a landfill over there.
That might be a landfill.
And it's just, there's a pipe that comes out of the ground, and no, it's an old one. There's homes built on it. It's like a Richmond, America development, a planned development there on top of an old landfill.
Ruby Hill's a landfill.
And there's a big old pipe that comes out of the ground, and there's a flame that's burning off of it. So they're burning the methane off, but they're definitely not using it there.
Well, what if it's not enough to be productive? I mean, that flame that you see.
How much does it cost to bottle that shit up instead? I mean, these are choices where if you're going to take away the whole, let's not use money. Like, let's be moral, people. Let's be smart about this. If it's not that much more expensive to have a little device there that compresses that methane and puts it into a tank, and somebody comes by every week to pick it up, that would be a lot smarter. But our country, and pretty much all of the countries in this world, are still full of like a bunch of dumb shit that's going on because people are lazy, or it's going to cost too much to do this. And this is where it's like it's really dumb that we're approaching things this way. I mean, we need to start like filtering the fucking ocean water and the North Pacific Gyre, the big trash heap in the ocean north of Hawaii. But most of that is like microscopic plastic. So you'd really have to like have huge boats up there filtering like all the time. Like they need to start like doing this shit. You know, there's all this money that flows into charities all the time, and you look around and you see what they're doing and what they're not doing, and sometimes I'm just baffled. And you just know that what it is that people are wanting to have millions of dollars in their fucking bank accounts. And, you know, maybe what the future needs next is when we can vote again is someone like Bernie Sanders to just strip the rich people of anything over $1 million. Like if they make anything more than $1 million, then, you know, it goes to their employees first or something, and, you know, like reforming, or it's all taxed if they make anything more than $1 million. You know, it's probably the way to go. And I
You're sounding like a, ready for this, everybody?
Don't say
socialist.
it. No. Nobody wants to do that. Everybody likes capitalism because we're all millionaires in the making, right? Like, we're going to be millionaires, like, next year, it's going to happen, blah, blah. I mean, or every once in a while I think of, like, oh, I could start a business and do that, and you know what? I've had a business. I had a really successful business for a couple of years. But, oh my God, I mean, like, the emotional wear of, like, running a pawn shop and, like, the number of clients that I had that died that I knew about. Like, I had that pawn shop for about 2 years, and I think I had 4 clients die that I wound up knowing about them dying, one way or the other. Like a friend of theirs either came in and told me, or somebody came in with their paperwork and said, yeah, they died, you know, can I, you know, and one of them was a guy, his brother was a heroin addict, and he had, like, stolen shit from his brother and pawned it, and, yeah, he called me, like, after his brother died, and he found the pawn slip from a heroin overdose, and, yeah, that was really, really sad, you know.
Question, just real quick, a question here. Do you see a lot of repeat business in pawn shops? Is that a?
Oh yeah.
So that's a
definitely.
It's a regular kind of income. You see the same faces over again.
Anybody that's going into a pawn shop is someone that, like, is an at-risk person. Like, if somebody's pawning shit, like, a couple times, like, somebody should probably be, like, calling them from the government, you know. Not necessarily from the government, from, you know, like a social service organization, you know, like an NGO. Like, we should permit that like, if somebody, like, pawns, like, 2 things in like 2-week period, we should open it up so NGOs can call those people and just be like, hey, we just wanted to call you and see how you're doing and blah blah blah, and, you know, do you have a problem? We can help you. We're here to help. We can point you in the right direction. Because if you're an addict, like, you don't even know how to even, like, begin to put your life back together. And if you had somebody call those people, that would save a lot of lives every year. I'll tell you what.
I could get behind something like that. Let's start a cause. I actually agree with that.
Yeah, somebody start a cause on that, you know, because I'm kind of stoned, so I probably won't remember this tomorrow. But that would be a good cause to start. I mean, but there's a lot of things like that in this world, and we don't ever really think about like what we want this planet to be in 3,000 years. What do we want the population of Earth to be like 3,000 years from now? And how can we do our part to make that image happen? Like you know, like you're all gonna die one day. I'm gonna die one day. We're all gonna fucking die. Don't believe that like you're gonna get stored in a computer and live on into infinity. That shit's not gonna happen. Like we're gonna all die one day. That's a reality. And I don't want to be bleak about it, but you know what? Accepting that that's the case. You know, what do we have? We have the future. You know, we have the next generations of people, and we have a responsibility to them to, you know, try to leave things better than we got them. You know, be the good friend that like borrows the car, and when you return it with a full tank of gas, even if you didn't use that much, or if you don't have the money, like at least put in more than you drove. You know, we have a responsibility to keep this planet good and healthy, and we've just been running with capitalism like on autopilot, with let's just do like whatever. If money's working here, then let's do things here and grow things, and we haven't built things in a sustainable way. Our cities are like fucked up in they're just bad. Like there's way better ways that they could be redesigned, and I don't know. It all sounds like a lot of work to you.
That's why in through the nose, out through the mouth. What can you do right now? Right. And even if it's just a tiny little thing, even if it's separating your trash out from your recycling.
Or if you've made enough money to get by for the rest of your life, like maybe you should think about like doing other things. You know,
I'm going to point to Warren Buffett, give away 94% of your wealth.
I don't think a lot of these billionaires really do that good of work with their charity.
Bill Gates does.
I don't think so.
No?
I think it's no, I really don't think so.
I believe all of his charities are self-funding.
There's something that's like just terribly broken with the charity system. I mean, they employ a lot of people that are out. Like if you've ever been on 16th Street Mall in downtown Denver, you'll get like hit up by a bunch of these people that are trying to sign you up for charities and guilting you in with pictures of kids, and I mean some of these people are really, really good at signing people up. But then I looked up. There's one that was in the same building I was working in. I looked them up, and they made like $400 million of income or donations like the prior year, and they would hit me up, and I'd be like, "Well, you guys already have $400 million. Like, how much more fucking money do you need? And like, what are you doing with that $400 million? If I had $400 million at my disposal, I would be able to like point to a city that like I built. Like I'd say, oh look, this place in Africa where things were like really fucked up and terrible. We went in, we like housed everybody in temporary housing, we bulldozed the whole thing, and we built a whole fucking city, a whole new city. I could probably do that for $200 million. And but these fucks have $400 million coming in, and like what progress do they show you? They like have like a picture of them like handing an egg to like some poor kid in like rags. It's like, why is that fucking kid in rags? Like, aren't you guys supposed to be helping him? Like, what the fuck are you like? Like, do something. Like I don't know what. I think they could be doing a lot better. I'll put it that way. I love that they exist at all. I think it's a good sign of what is behind people, that we are good, that there is goodness in us. But holy shit, like they're not talking to the right people to make this money work.
That is very true. That is very true. Because charity is a wonderful way to fleece people out of money, and many people have figured that out. That people, on the whole, are good and decent and wish to help the world around them.
Yeah.
But there are those, and it's not everybody. It's not everybody. We have to say it's really only a few bad apples that ruin the bunch. I mean, you have to take into account that for the most part, people are trying to do good things around the world. They're trying to help out. They're trying to it's just, and that's why we make fun of them. That's why Sally Struthers was such a joke for a while.
Like, if you, let's say you're funding cancer research, right? And let's say, like, these people that, like, they find a cure. But then they're like, wait, if we give them the fucking cure, like, what are we going to be doing next year, man? Like, we're going to be out of a job. Like,
Yeah.
we should just, like, write this down and, like, put it in, like, a secret vault. And before, like, anything like that happens, like, some microphone heard them talking and, like, the Men in Black sweep in, like real quick, like, and just take off with the papers, Tesla style. Or maybe that happens. I doubt it.
The FBI declassified its files on Tesla, so go check those out.
You know, the CIA declassified a bunch of UFO stuff recently.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. A lot of people don't know this, but they have been releasing a lot of UFO related documents over the past number of years.
So how many of them are actually UFOs?
I haven't really looked into it too much. Like, after I saw my first UFOs, I stopped really caring about, like, what everyone else was saying in the history.
I discount nothing. But the surest sign that there is intelligent life in the universe, aside from us, is that it has steered clear. And
Yeah, we're definitely like the North Korea of the galaxy.
Yeah.
It's like the do not touch policy on our planet. I don't know, it's so hard to know. I've heard so many great stories of, like, UFOs that are trans-dimensional, like flying into Dr. Reed's, not Dr. Reed, sorry, wrong person, the Disclosure Project guy. What is his name? Thank God for that solid-state hard drive in my laptop. It was just off, and now it's on, and I'm on the web already. If you want to upgrade your computer, get a solid-state hard drive. Oh yeah, the Disclosure Project is paying Stephen Greer. Stephen Greer is a really, really interesting guy. There's lots of videos of him giving lectures. He gave one recently, and yeah, watch that one. That's a really good one to watch. But he said that, you know, that he thinks these UFOs can be like trans-dimensional, and he's seen them like appear like right in front of him before. He developed this thing called the CE5 protocol, and it's a meditation protocol, and if you do it, UFOs will show up. And he also has an app that he made. I swear to God, if you go in the App Store and look it up, I think it's called like the CSETI app, CSETI. If you search CSETI or if you search CE5 in the app stores, you'll be able to find the app. But you have to pay for it. But if you look at the reviews, like, people say, like, yeah, I turned it on and then I went outside and there was a UFO above my house, and it's like there's quite a few reviews of people saying that it actually worked. That they turned this app on, and within like a half an hour they had UFOs nearby their wherever they were.
Okay. Mass hypnosis, maybe. I wouldn't put it past them. I mean, there's a whole bunch of drugs floating around in our water supply, so...
You never know. So maybe, I like thinking about that. Like, is it possible that there's aliens that are trans-dimensional, that they go into another dimension?
Well, think about it.
You could argue that would have to be the case, because you'd have to do that to travel faster than the speed of light. And if you were going to go anywhere in this galaxy, like, we can't fly in a lifetime at the speed of light to, like, anything. By the time you would get there, like I think the closest stars that would have habitable planets, I think they're like 70 light years away.
4.
They
4 light years?
They think Proxima Centauri may have, because it's a...
But either way,
What
like,
is it, a red
we're not going to be
dwarf?
able to build a ship, and I don't think any species could build any ship that could go the speed of light in this. And plus, you couldn't even do that anyways, because if you're going that fast as just a physical object, like without using some advanced technology of shields and shit, like you would have rocks hitting things, and you wouldn't make it going that fast.
Well, Star Trek and Star Wars both address this problem.
Warp drive.
Star Wars, with the hyperdrive, they were always talking about, well, you got to make these right calculations, or else you're going to, fly yourself into the middle of a star. The whole joke behind Han Solo flying the Kessel Run in 12 parsecs, I think is what it was, and people will probably yell at me if that's incorrect. But it's because, and people, this has been argued for years of what that means. I've made it in 12 parsecs. Well, that means that he only had to go through 12 parsecs of space to get to the Kessel Mines, which is where the spice was. This is a whole big Star Wars thing. But he could do it in less, distance than other people. Most smugglers could do it in like 14 or 16 parsecs.
Oh, interesting.
So that's what he means when he says that, is that he can get from space to space with less distance, so less time overall. And then in Star Trek, the deflector dish. The only purpose of the deflector dish is to put out a field in front of the ship so that it doesn't hit little rocks and things that are coming in front of it. And in warp drive, you're not technically moving the ship. You're moving space around the ship.
Right.
Which is just, when you think about it, it's just like...
Well, that would be like
What?
that would be transdimensional travel, I think. Because, I mean, if you were to actually do that, like, would people even be able to, like, see you going by if you're bending space around the ship? And you're, like, just zipping through, like, super quickly? You wouldn't see it,
You'd
right?
never
I mean,
know.
if they flew by,
Well, what, I mean,
we would never see them. And, there was a huge freaking asteroid that flew between the Earth and the Moon a couple weeks ago.
January...
And we never even saw it. We never saw it. Think about that.
January
Think about
7th,
that.
I think?
Think about the fact that your governments, all of our governments, don't give a fuck if we get hit by a huge-ass asteroid.
They didn't know.
Like, they need to be putting, like Donald Trump said something like, oh, we should reform NATO. You know what? I agree. Why don't you reform NATO and make it like the space, like put all that money into looking at space and making sure we're not going to get hit by a giant asteroid. Because if that happens, it's all over. If we get hit by something really big, we're done.
But
like, that's it. Civilization is done. And that might have happened before.
we can't see half of the shit that's out there.
Oh, well, we could. I think we could certainly develop technologies to do so.
We certainly could, and I wholeheartedly agree with you on that. And maybe we should spend more time doing that instead of arguing with each other over whether people should be allowed to have homes at a reasonable interest rate.
Yeah.
Or whether or not a woman should have the right to have an abortion. Or whether or not... Because frankly, if you don't want to have an abortion, don't.
Well,
it's pretty simple.
It's kind of like a
It's a non-starter, but people get so worked up about it.
It's not even... It shouldn't be discussed anymore in America. We shouldn't even talk about it being legal or not legal or having bio... You look at, like, when they have elections, they'll have bios where they send out and it shows the bio of everyone, and part of that bio is, whether or not abortion, like what their view on abortion is. It's like, the law's not going to fucking change. It is how it is. It's a horrible thing. Like, there's no debating that. No one's happy about having that done, like, ever. It's a horrible fucking thing. And anybody that's ever had that experience in their life, and I have, and that it's just, every time it's brought up, it's just like, oh my God, and it's always going to be an issue because of how it makes people feel, but we should stop talking about it. Basically, it's probably the mature thing to do, and we should care for our children. And if you have children, like maybe fuck your career. Maybe you can live in a smaller house and raise kids in a smaller house, and just live more sustainably with children and raise them and be there and not be gone for like it's not good for a much healthier child would be raised in a family with a father that's present like all the time, or at least most of the time. But if you're gone 8-10 hours a day,
well, two parents.
When it's two parents, it's even worse. But even one parent.
Well, no, I'm going to interject that two parent households are much more stable than single parent households. This is just. I'm not saying single mothers and single fathers don't do great jobs. I'm not saying that. This is just statistically proven. And I don't care if it's two guys, two girls, an uncle, an aunt.
Yeah.
I mean, just it
because
like, there's always somebody there.
Dude? The people that get abortions are like mostly young people that get pregnant. That's when it happened in my life. And you know, you can do the other thing. You can also not do that and have a child and grow up really quick. You know, there's people that have done it. That's a tough choice to make. But I think the point is that if you are gonna have the child, like, then you really want to try to stay with that person and try to make it work. And you know, people fuck up and you know, when there's a kid involved, like that's when, you know, a lot of relationships should be given second chances and people should be forgiven. And unless there's, you know, obviously like abuse going on, then clearly, you know, the right option is different there. But you know, we're at a very selfish point. Our society is where people don't want to take responsibility for their actions. And even people that are taking responsibility, you know, you can still raise a bad kid if you're an absent father, you know. But even if you're living in that home and you're not there all the time, like, you could be doing a much better job if you're home with that kid all the time. And there's ways to make that happen. But you know, a lot of people want to have that nice car and they want to have that nice house, and you know, you could move out to the country and build a yurt. That's my plan. Got a couple years left on my lease, but you know, I'm thinking that's what I'm going to do is go buy some cheap land, build a house, like learn some skills, and be able to actually raise my child and other children I'll probably have. But
well, there's also a difference in maturity level of people. I mean, the brain, we are still discovering things about the brain all the time, and we have the last article I read said that they have decided that the brain doesn't completely develop until you're 25. I mean,
that's definitely true.
And
I would have to say.
And think about that. And there are some people, I mean, you knew these people in high school who were a hell of a lot more mature than you were, and you know these people at your job now that you're 30, who are the most immature people you've ever met, and they're 50.
Yeah,
I mean,
quite a few. It's like everyone starts out as a baby, and some of us carry a lot of those traits into adulthood. You know, it's like people just want to win, just to be like, oh, I won the. It's like it's not about winning. It's about like understanding. It's about hear out the other side. You know, like, is it possible that you're wrong?
It's very possible.
Rather than getting upset and like trying to defend your position, just, you know, what I do most of the time is I just shut up and I listen.
Yeah.
I listen to what the other person has to say, and you know, most of the time it's just like when I hear them out, I'm like, you know, thank you. You know, it's good to hear a different position. You know, it takes two people to have an argument. Like you don't have to have arguments about things, really.
I disagree.
We just cat crashed some AI program that's listening.
Yeah, that was pretty good. Yeah, I like that.
Well, you definitely have the right to disagree, and I don't even know if I'm right. So, yeah, I hear you.
I think that's a wonderful spot to take
Take a stop.
so that we can make sure that this doesn't